Very common fear.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
What would you say to people who are afraid to speak English because they're worried about making mistakes?
I would say embrace the mistakes.
Embrace them.
Everyone makes mistakes. It's a natural part of the learning process.
Even native speakers make mistakes.
Absolutely. So don't let the fear of making mistakes hold you back.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. When you were a child learning to walk, you probably fell down many times.
Yeah.
But you didn't give up.
Right.
You kept practicing.
Yeah.
And eventually you learned to walk.
And now we're all walking and talking.
Exactly. So view those mistakes as opportunities to learn and grow.
That's a great way to look at it. I love that.
And sometimes the most embarrassing mistakes can be the most memorable learning experiences.
Yeah.
I remember when I was learning English, I once told someone I'm very boring when I meant to say I'm very bored.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, they kindly corrected me,
Yeah.
and I've never forgotten the difference between those two words since then.
I've definitely made my fair share of embarrassing mistakes as well.
I'm sure we all have.
But you learn from it and you move on.
Absolutely. And, the more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
And the fewer mistakes you'll make, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's all part of the process.
It is.
So don't be afraid to put yourself out there, guys.
Absolutely.
Even if you're not perfect.
And the most important thing is to just start speaking.
Yeah.
The more you practice, the better you'll get.
And you'll have fun along the way, hopefully.
Absolutely.
I love that reminder.
It's about the journey.
Yeah, it's about the journey.
Not the destination.
Yeah. I remember when I first started traveling, I was so nervous about speaking English in public.
I can imagine.
I was so afraid of making a mistake and people thinking I was stupid.
It's a very common feeling.
It is.
Yeah.
But I realized that most people are just happy that you're trying.
They are.
They appreciate the effort.
Absolutely. And they're usually more than willing to help you if you need it.
Exactly. And sometimes those imperfect moments lead to the most memorable connections with people.
That's true.
I once had this conversation with a shopkeeper in Italy.
Okay.
My Italian was terrible. His English was limited.
I see.
But we managed to communicate using a combination of gestures, broken phrases, and a lot of laughter.
That's great.
And it was such a simple interaction, but it really showed me that communication is about so much more than just perfect grammar.
Absolutely. It's about connection. It's about understanding. It's about that shared human experience.
Exactly. So as you continue learning English, guys, remember those moments, remember those connections.
And remember, it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
In fact, often those moments of imperfection can lead to the most profound growth.
And the most amazing stories.
Absolutely.
So I'm really curious to hear about some of the people that you've met who have used these techniques to overcome their language barriers and achieve their goals.
Okay.
What are some of their stories?
Well, I've had so many students over the years who've had incredible transformations.
That's great.
And one story that really stands out is about a woman named Anna.
Anna, okay.
Anna was a teacher from Poland.
Okay.
And she had this dream of teaching internationally.
Wow.
But her English speaking skills were holding her back.
Okay.
She would get so nervous and tongue-tied in conversations.
Yeah,
She felt like she was trapped behind a wall,
I can relate to that.
but she was determined to break free.
Okay.
And so she started small,
Yeah.
She started by talking to herself in English at home,
Just talking to herself.
just describing her day, her thoughts, her feelings.
Okay.
It felt silly at first, but she kept at it.
Yeah.
And then she started having imaginary conversations in English.
Imaginary conversations.
Yes. So she pictured herself, teaching a class, presenting at a conference, answering questions.
Wow.
She even stood in front of the mirror and practiced her presentations.
That's a great idea.
And slowly but surely, her confidence grew.
Yeah.
And then one day, she received an invitation to present at an international conference.
Wow, her dream come true.
It was a dream come true, but it was also terrifying.
I imagine.
But Anna had been preparing for this moment.
Yeah.
She had trained her brain to think in English.
Right.
She knew she could do it.
Okay.
So the day of the conference arrived, and Anna stepped onto that stage,
Wow.
took a deep breath, and began to speak.
Okay.
And the words flowed effortlessly.
Wow.
She was clear, she was concise, she was engaging.
Amazing.
The audience was captivated,
That's incredible.
and her presentation was a huge success.
That's amazing.
She had overcome her fear and achieved her dream.
Wow, that's a really inspiring story.
It is. And her story is a reminder that we are all capable of amazing things when we set our minds to it.
Absolutely.
And thinking in English is a crucial step on that journey.
Yeah.
It's about more than just speaking a language. It's about unlocking your potential and sharing your gifts with the world.
I love that.
And we all have gifts to share.
Yeah. So even just practicing speaking to yourself, that can be a really powerful tool.
Absolutely.
I think another challenge for a lot of language learners is finding the time to practice consistently.
It is. Life is busy.
Yeah, it is. We've got work, we've got family, we've got all these other commitments.
Exactly. But I truly believe that even small amounts of practice done regularly can make a huge difference.
Small amounts, okay.
Yeah, it's like exercise. You don't have to spend hours at the gym every day to see results.
Okay.
Even a short workout a few times a week can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And it's the same with English. Even 15, 20 minutes of practice each day.
That's manageable.
It is.
Yeah.
And the key is to make it a habit. Find a time that works for you and stick to it.
So build it into your routine.
Exactly. Maybe it's listening to a podcast during your commute, or reading an article during your lunch break, or watching a short video before bed.
Okay.
Just find little ways to integrate English into your daily life.
And those little moments add up over time.
They do. And when you start seeing progress, you'll be motivated to keep going.
Absolutely.
And you know what? One of my students, Daniel, he struggled with this very issue.
Okay, Daniel.
He was a university student from Brazil,
Okay.
and he dreamed of becoming an engineer.
Okay.
He knew that English was essential for his career, but he just couldn't find the time to practice.
Yeah.
He was so overwhelmed with his studies and his social life.
Right.
And then he discovered language learning apps.
Language learning apps.
Yes. And he started using them during his downtime,
Okay.
while waiting for the bus, in between classes, just little pockets of time.
Yeah.
And he found that even these short bursts of practice were really beneficial.
So he was still able to make progress, even though he didn't have a lot of time.
Exactly. He was learning new words, improving his grammar, getting more comfortable with speaking.
So those apps provided a way for him to kind of fit English into his busy schedule.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
they also provide that sense of gamification and progress tracking, which can be really motivating.
Yeah, I can see that.
And over time, Daniel's English improved dramatically. He started participating more in his English classes. He felt more confident speaking with international students.
Wow.
He even landed an internship at an international company.
Amazing.
And it just shows how technology can make language learning more accessible and more engaging.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And it's a reminder that we don't have to limit ourselves to traditional methods.
Right.
There are so many new and innovative tools available to help us learn.
And it's about finding what works best for you.
I think one of the coolest things I've seen lately is language learners using online gaming to practice English.
I have seen that too. It's amazing.
It's brilliant.
It is. It's like this immersive environment
Yeah.
where they can interact with other people in real time.
Right.
It's a really natural and fun way to practice.
And it's not like you're sitting down with a textbook. It's like you're playing a game.
Exactly.
Do you have any students who have had success with this?
Yeah, I had a student named Miguel from Spain.
Miguel. Okay.
He was an avid gamer. He loved playing online multiplayer games.
Okay.
And he realized that many of the other players were from English-speaking countries.
Okay.
And at first, he was really hesitant to communicate. He was afraid of making mistakes and being judged.
I can imagine.
But he decided to take a leap of faith.
Okay.
And so he started by typing simple messages in the game chat.
Okay.
And then gradually, he worked his way up to voice chat.
Wow.
And he found that the other players were so supportive.
That's great.
They understood that he was learning. They were patient with his mistakes. They even helped him with his vocabulary and grammar.
Oh, wow.
So through gaming, Miguel not only improved his English, but he also made friends from all over the world.
That's incredible. So he was having fun, improving his English, and making friends.
All at the same time.
That's amazing.
It is. And it shows how technology can connect us and create these unexpected learning opportunities.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And it also shows us that sometimes the most effective learning happens outside of the traditional classroom.
Yeah.
It's about finding ways to integrate language learning into our passions and our interests.
I love that idea of language learning as an adventure.
It is an adventure.
Yeah, it is. It's about stepping outside of our comfort zones and embracing the unknown.
Absolutely. And speaking of adventures, let's talk about another fantastic resource for language learning, Movies and TV shows.
Movies and TV shows. Okay.
Yeah, they're like portals to different worlds.
Yeah.
They immerse us in different languages and cultures.
Yeah.
And the best part is they're incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, I love watching movies.
I do too.
So watching movies and TV shows in English, that's a great way to improve your listening comprehension, your vocabulary, even your pronunciation.
Absolutely. It's like having a private tutor in your living room.
Yeah.
But instead of feeling like work, it feels like relaxation and fun.
Exactly.
Are there any strategies that can make watching movies and TV shows even more beneficial for language learning?
Yes, there are. So first, choose content that you enjoy.
Yeah,
If you're not interested in the story, you're less likely to pay attention.
right.
So find something that sparks your interest, whether it's romantic comedies, action thrillers, documentaries, whatever you like.
Okay.
Second, start with subtitles in your native language if you need to.
Okay.
This will help you follow the plot and understand the overall meaning.
Okay.
As your English improves, you can gradually switch to English subtitles, or even try watching without subtitles.
So gradually challenge yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Third, don't just passively watch. Get actively involved.
Okay.
Pause the movie or show. Repeat phrases out loud. Try to imitate the actor's pronunciation and intonation.
Okay.
Pay attention to how they use body language and facial expressions to convey meaning.
So really engage with the content.
Exactly. The more you engage, the more you'll learn.
And finally, don't be afraid to rewatch your favorites. You'll be surprised how much you missed the first time around.
Yeah.
And with each viewing, you'll pick up new vocabulary and understand the nuances of the language better.
So it's okay to watch the same movie multiple times?
Absolutely. In fact, I encourage it.
Okay. Do you have any students who have had success with this technique?
Yes. One of my students, Priya from India, she used this technique to really transform her English.
Okay. Priya from India.
She had always loved watching movies, but she never thought of it as a way to learn English.
Right.
And then a friend suggested that she start watching movies with English subtitles.
Okay.
And at first she found it challenging. You know, she had to pause and rewind frequently.
Yeah.
But she persevered.
Okay.
And gradually she started to understand more and more.
Wow.
And she also started noticing patterns in the language.
Okay.
You know, she realized that certain phrases and expressions were repeated often.
Right.
And so she started using those phrases in her own conversations.
So she was picking up on natural English.
Exactly. And her English started to sound more natural and more fluent as a result.
That's great.
And, you know, her story shows us that even something as enjoyable as watching movies can be a powerful tool for language learning.
Absolutely.
It's about being intentional with our time and finding creative ways to integrate English into our daily lives.
I love that idea of finding English everywhere we look.
It is. It's all around us.
It's like training our minds to see the world through an English lens.
Exactly.
Oh.
And, you know, one of my students, Robbie, he had a really remarkable experience with this very concept.
Robbie.
Robbie owned a small shop in India,
Okay.
and he had always wanted to learn English.
Huh?
He knew that it would help him connect with tourists and expand his business,
Right.
but he had struggled with English in school. He found it boring and difficult.
Yeah.
He thought he was too old to learn.
Okay.
And then one evening, he was flipping through TV channels, and he stumbled upon a movie.
Okay.
It was Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda. Okay.
And he was immediately captivated by the story, by the animation, by the humor.
Yeah.
And even though he didn't understand much of the dialogue, he watched the entire movie.
Wow.
And something clicked.
Okay.
He realized that English wasn't this foreign and intimidating language.
Yeah.
It was a way to tell stories, to connect with people, to make them laugh.
Yeah.
And from that day forward, Robbie started watching English movies regularly.
Wow.
He would watch with subtitles in his native language first,
Okay.
and then he would rewatch with English subtitles. He would pause, rewind, repeat. He would look up words he didn't understand.
Wow. He was really committed.
He was. It was a slow process,
Yeah.
but Robbie was determined.
Yeah.
And gradually, he started to make progress. He began to recognize words and phrases.
Okay.
He could follow the plot more easily. He even started speaking short phrases to the tourists who visited his shop.
Wow. That's amazing.
And his customers were delighted.
Yeah.
They were impressed by his effort. They encouraged him to keep practicing.
I love that.
And, you know, his story is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to learn.
Yeah.
It's about finding something that sparks your passion and using it as a springboard for language learning.
So find something you enjoy.
Exactly. And believe in yourself.
Absolutely. Speaking of pushing through challenges, Let's talk about a technique that can really accelerate our progress in thinking in English. Thinking in paragraphs.
Yes.
We've already touched on this idea briefly, but I'd love to explore it in more depth.
Okay.
So thinking in paragraphs is like taking our mental English workout to the next level.
It is.
Instead of just labeling objects or constructing simple sentences, we're challenging ourselves to think through entire ideas or stories in English.
Exactly. You're developing your capacity for sustained thought in the language.
Okay.
And it's so beneficial for your overall fluency.
Okay.
When you can think in paragraphs, you can speak more spontaneously. You don't have to pause and translate every thought before you utter it.
The words flow more naturally.
So how do we develop this skill?
Well, it starts with practice.
Okay.
Choose a topic that interests you. It could be anything. Your hobbies, your dreams, your plans for the future.
Okay.
And then close your eyes and imagine you're talking about this topic in English.
Okay.
Don't worry about grammar or vocabulary at this stage.
Okay.
Just focus on creating a stream of consciousness in your mind.
Okay.
Let the thoughts flow freely.
So just let those thoughts come out in English.
Exactly. For example, if you're passionate about travel, you might imagine yourself describing your dream vacation.
Right.
Think about the places you'd visit, the food you'd eat, the people you'd meet.
Okay.
You could picture yourself, walking along a pristine beach, exploring ancient ruins, trying exotic dishes.
Right.
And the more detailed and vivid your mental picture, the more engaged your brain will be.
So really create that whole experience in your mind.
Exactly. And the more you practice this, the easier it will become.
You'll find that your thoughts will naturally start to organize themselves into paragraphs.
Wow.
You'll be able to connect ideas, express opinions, tell stories in a more sophisticated way.
So it's like a mental rehearsal.
Exactly.
Okay. Any other tips for kind of strengthening that ability to think in paragraphs?
Well, another helpful technique is to summarize articles or stories you've read or listened to.
Okay.
So after finishing a piece of content, try to explain the main points to yourself in your own words in English.
Okay.
And this forces you to process the information deeply
Okay.
and to find ways to express it concisely.
So you're really thinking through those ideas?
Exactly. And it's also a great way to practice paraphrasing. It's a really valuable skill to have.
It is, I'm convinced. Thinking in paragraphs is going to be the next level for me.
It's a good goal to have.
But I think for a lot of learners, myself included, pronunciation can be a real obstacle to fluency.
It's true. Pronunciation is very important.
We might have a good grasp of grammar. We might know a lot of vocabulary words.
Yeah.
But if our pronunciation isn't clear, it can be hard for people to understand us.
Absolutely. It can really hinder your ability to communicate effectively.
It's like having a beautiful melody trapped inside an instrument that's out of tune.
I like that analogy.
The music is there, but you can't fully appreciate it.
Right.
So pronunciation is kind of like the key to unlocking the beauty and the clarity of our spoken English.
It is. It's about training our mouths to make those sounds of the language accurately
Right.
and naturally. And it's also about being aware of the rhythm, the stress, and the intonation that make English sound unique.
I remember when I first started learning English, pronunciation was a huge challenge for me.
I can imagine. It's a common challenge for many learners.
I had a strong accent, and I really struggled to produce certain sounds.
Yeah,
I felt so self-conscious,
it's understandable.
and I would just avoid speaking whenever possible.
But you didn't give up.
I didn't. But then I met this wonderful speech therapist,
Oh, that's great.
and she changed my life. She really taught me the mechanics of speech.
Okay.
She showed me how to position my tongue, my lips, my jaw to produce the correct sounds.
So she helped you to understand the physicality of making those sounds.
Exactly. She made me aware of those subtle differences between similar sounds.
Yeah.
And she just really encouraged me to practice.
That's so important.
I would spend hours in front of the mirror just repeating words and phrases.
Wow.
I'd listen to recordings of native speakers. I would try to mimic their pronunciation. I even recorded myself and listened back to try to identify areas where I could improve.
So you were really dedicated to improving your pronunciation.
I was. And it was a long process.
Yeah.
And at times it was really tedious.
But you saw progress.
I did. Gradually, I started to see progress. My accent softened.
That's great.
My pronunciation became clearer.
Yeah.
And my confidence grew.
That's wonderful.
And I realized that pronunciation wasn't about erasing my accent.
Right.
It was about making myself understood.
Exactly.
It was about expressing myself clearly and confidently.
It's about communication.
It is. So There are so many resources available now to help people improve their pronunciation.
There are. There are apps, websites, online courses, YouTube channels, even speech therapists who specialize in working with language learners.
So there's really no excuse not to work on your pronunciation.
Right. The key is to find what works best for you
Okay.
and to make pronunciation practice a regular part of your language learning routine.
So don't be afraid to experiment. Try different techniques. Find a pronunciation buddy to practice with.
Yeah, all of those things can be really helpful.
And most importantly, don't give up.
Exactly. Pronunciation is a skill that can be learned.
Okay.
It can be mastered with dedication and effort,
Okay.
and the rewards are immeasurable. When you can pronounce English clearly, you open up a world of possibilities.
Absolutely. So we've talked about thinking in English. We've talked about pronunciation. What about vocabulary?
Well, vocabulary is crucial. It's the raw material that we use to build our thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
It's like the paint that we use to create our linguistic masterpieces.
Okay.
The more words we know, the more colorful and nuanced our language becomes.
But building a strong vocabulary, that can feel really overwhelming.
It can, but it doesn't have to be about memorizing endless lists of words.
Okay.
It's about learning words in context,
Okay.
understanding how they're used in different situations,
Okay.
and developing a feel for the language.
So how can we do that?
Well, one of the most effective ways to learn vocabulary is through reading.
Reading. Okay.
When we read, we encounter new words in their natural habitat.
Okay.
We see how they're used in sentences.
Uh-huh.
We learn their connotations.
Right.
We absorb their meaning.
But don't just read passively.
Right. You need to engage with the text.
Okay.
Highlight unfamiliar words,
Yeah.
look them up in a dictionary, write them down in a notebook, try to use them in your own writing or speaking.
So really interact with those words.
Exactly. The more you interact with new words, the more likely you are to remember them.
Okay. Any other tips for kind of solidifying those new words in our minds?
Yeah, flashcards can be helpful.
Okay.
But instead of just writing single words on your flashcards, try writing full sentences or even short paragraphs.
Okay, so put them in context.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of repetition. Review your flashcards regularly, even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
Okay.
The more you expose yourself to new words, the more they will become a part of your active vocabulary.
One of the things that I struggle with is remembering the new words that I learn.
It's a common challenge.
It is. It is. Do you have any students who have overcome this challenge?
Yeah, I had a student, Maria from Mexico. She really struggled with vocabulary acquisition.
Maria from Mexico. Okay.
She felt like she was constantly forgetting the words that she learned.
Yeah.
And then she discovered the power of visual association.
Visual association. Okay.
Maria loved to draw. And so she started incorporating her artistic talent into her vocabulary learning.
Okay.
So every time she encountered a new word, she would write it down in a notebook
Okay.
and then draw a picture next to it.
Draw a picture.
A picture. And the picture didn't have to be a literal representation of the word.
Okay.
It could be anything that helped her to remember the meaning.
So something to connect with.
Exactly. For example, if she was learning the word happy, she might draw a smiling face.
Okay.
Or if she was learning the word sad, she might draw a crying cloud.
Okay.
And this simple technique worked wonders for her. She found that she was remembering new words much more easily.
Wow.
And she was actually enjoying the process.
So it's about finding a way to make it fun, to make
Yeah.
it personal.
Exactly. We don't have to
Okay.
limit ourselves to those traditional methods.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got thinking in English, we've got pronunciation, we've got vocabulary.
Yeah.
What about grammar?
Well, grammar is the backbone of language.
Yeah.
It provides the structure and the rules that allow us to communicate clearly.
But grammar can be really intimidating for a lot of learners.
It can. It can feel very complex and overwhelming.
It does. There are so many rules and exceptions.
There are. But grammar doesn't have to be a nightmare.
Okay, good.
There are ways to approach it that are fun, engaging, and even liberating.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
One of the biggest mistakes learners make is trying to memorize all the grammar rules at once.
Okay.
It's like trying to eat an entire cake in one sitting.
Yeah.
You're gonna feel sick and you're unlikely to enjoy the experience.
Right.
So instead, approach grammar gradually.
Gradually, okay.
Focus on one concept at a time.
Okay.
Make sure you understand the logic behind the rule.
Okay.
Practice using it in different contexts. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
So break it down into manageable chunks.
Exactly. And, those mistakes are a natural part of learning. They help you to identify those areas where you need to improve.
Any other tips for making grammar a little less scary?
Yeah, find a grammar buddy.
A grammar
Someone
butts.
you can practice with, ask questions.
Yeah.
It's like having a personal grammar coach.
Oh, I like that.
And, there are also countless apps, websites, and online courses.
Okay.
Many of them are free.
So there are a lot of resources out
A
there.
lot of resources.
Okay. Do you have any students who have had success with this kind of approach to grammar?
Yeah, I have a student, Lucas from Brazil.
Lucas from Brazil. Okay.
He had a real breakthrough when he realized that grammar wasn't about memorization.
Okay.
It was about understanding.
Okay.
He had always struggled with English grammar. He felt like he was constantly making mistakes.
Yeah.
And he couldn't understand why.
Okay.
And then he started asking himself, why?
Why?
Why? Why is this sentence structured this way? Why do we use this tense in this situation? Why is this word plural and not singular?
So he was really trying to understand the reasoning behind the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by asking why, he started to see the logic
Yeah.
behind the rules. He realized that grammar wasn't just a set of arbitrary rules, it was a system for making meaning.
Okay.
And once he understood that system, he started to make fewer mistakes.
Wow, that's great.
And he felt more confident in his writing and speaking.
And he actually started to enjoy grammar.
He did. He found it fascinating.
So it's about shifting our mindset from fear to curiosity.
Absolutely. It's about seeing grammar as a puzzle to be solved, not a monster to be feared.
I love that. And speaking of empowerment, I think confidence is one of the most important ingredients in language learning.
It is. It's essential.
You can have all the knowledge, all the skills in the world,
Yeah.
but if we don't believe in ourselves, we don't have that confidence, it's really hard to speak fluently.
Absolutely. Confidence allows us to relax, to let go of our inhibitions, and to just speak.
But confidence is something that not everyone has naturally.
It's true. For many people, it's something that needs to be cultivated.
Okay. So how can we build our confidence in speaking English?
Well, one of the best ways is to set realistic goals. Don't try to become fluent overnight.
Okay.
Instead, focus on small, achievable steps.
Okay.
Maybe it's having a 5-minute conversation in English, or reading a short article, or watching a 10-minute video.
So break it down into smaller goals.
Exactly. And every time you achieve a goal, you give yourself a little boost of confidence.
Okay.
And that confidence propels you forward.
Okay. Any other tips for building confidence?
Yeah, practice in a safe and supportive environment.
Yeah.
Find a language partner, a conversation group, or an online community where you feel comfortable making mistakes.
So surround yourself with people who support you.
Exactly. People who encourage you and believe in your ability to learn.
Do you have any students who have really transformed their confidence through this kind of approach?
Yeah, I had a student, Chloe, from France,
Chloe, okay.
and she was incredibly intelligent and capable,
Okay.
but she lacked confidence in her English speaking. She had this negative inner voice that constantly told her she wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And she was so afraid of making mistakes, she would avoid speaking whenever possible.
I can relate to that.
And then she decided to challenge herself.
Okay.
And she set a small goal to say hello to a stranger in English.
Just say hello.
Just say hello.
Yep.
It might sound like a tiny step, but for Chloe, it was huge.
Yeah.
And she did it.
Wow.
She felt this surge of pride and accomplishment.
That's great.
And that small victory gave her the courage to set another goal.
Okay.
And another.
Wow.
And another. She joined an online conversation group.
Okay.
She started speaking more in class. She even started practicing English with her colleagues at work.
So she was really pushing herself outside of her comfort zone.
She was. And gradually, her confidence grew.
That's amazing.
And she realized that making mistakes was okay.
Yeah.
It was part of the learning process. And the more she spoke, the more confident she became.
So it's like confidence is a muscle that we can strengthen with practice.
Absolutely. The more we use it, the stronger it gets.
I love that analogy.
So don't be afraid to put yourself out there, make mistakes, learn from them, and celebrate your successes.
Yeah,
Every step you take is a step closer to fluency.
absolutely. And fluency is not a destination, it's a journey.
It is. It's a process of constant growth and discovery.
And it's a journey worth taking.
It is. It really is.
You've had the privilege of working with students from all over the world,
I have. It's been an incredible experience.
and you've seen firsthand how language learning can really transform lives.
It can. It can open doors to new opportunities.
Yeah.
It can foster cross-cultural understanding.
Yeah.
It can empower individuals.
It's amazing.
And it can bring joy and fulfillment.
But ultimately, language learning is about finding your voice.
It is. It's about embracing your unique perspective, sharing your story with the world.
I love that.
And, one of my students, Mateo from Argentina, he had this dream of sharing his music with the world.
Mateo from
He
Argentina.
was a very talented musician.
Okay.
But his limited English skills were holding him back.
Okay.
He knew that to reach a wider audience, he needed to be able to communicate in English.
Yeah.
And so Mateo embarked on a language learning journey.
Okay.
He immersed himself in English-speaking music and culture. He studied grammar and vocabulary. He practiced speaking and writing.
Wow.
But most importantly, he focused on finding his own voice.
Okay.
He didn't want to sound like a textbook.
Yeah.
He wanted to express himself authentically. He wanted his personality to shine through in his music.
Yeah.
And he did.
Wow.
He started writing songs in English. He incorporated elements of his Argentinian heritage into his music.
Okay.
He created a unique sound that blended his cultural roots with his newfound linguistic abilities.
That's credible.
And the world took notice.
Wow.
Mateo's music resonated with people from all over the world.
That's amazing.
They were drawn to his authenticity, his passion, his unique blend of languages and cultures.
I love that. So it wasn't just about learning the language, it was about using the language to express himself.
Exactly. And, his story is a beautiful testament to the power of finding your voice.
It is.
It's a reminder that language learning is not about conformity.
Right.
It's about self-expression.
Yeah.
It's about embracing our individuality.
Absolutely.
And it's about sharing our gifts with the world.
So as you continue on your journey of learning English,
Yes.
remember to find your voice.
Yes.
Let your personality shine through.
Absolutely.
Embrace your uniqueness.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
The world is waiting to hear your story.
I love that. Mateo's story is so inspiring. It really shows that learning English is more than just, acquiring a skill.
It is. It's much more than that.
It's about expressing yourself. It's about connecting with people from all over the world, and it's about making your dreams a reality.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that, it's a journey.
Yeah.
It has challenges, but it also has so many rewards.
It does.
And it's a journey that I think is definitely worth taking.
I agree.
So we've talked so many different techniques and strategies to help people think in English and to speak faster.
Yeah.
We talked about immersion,
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with English as much as possible.
As much as you can.
We talked about repetition, training our brains to think and to speak in English automatically.
Like any other skill.
We talked about being patient,
Yeah.
about being persistent.
Takes time.
It takes time and effort, but the results are worth it.
Definitely.
And we've heard so many inspiring stories from people who have, overcome so many obstacles to achieve their goals.
Amazing stories.
Amazing stories, yeah. But I think the most important message that I want people to take away from this episode is to believe in yourself. You have the ability to learn English, you have the power to achieve your goals, and you have a unique voice and perspective that deserves to be heard.
It does.
So don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to speak up.
Let your voice be heard.
The world is waiting to hear what you have to say. And remember, we're here to support you every step of the way.
Absolutely.
So keep learning, keep practicing, and keep believing in yourself.
You got this.
You got this. I love that, Elena. That's a beautiful sentiment, and I think it really perfectly captures the spirit of this episode.
Thank you.
Learning English, it's not just about, learning a new skill or acquiring knowledge.
It's more than that.
It's about empowering yourself.
Yeah.
It's about expanding your horizons.
Absolutely.
It's about connecting with the world.
And other people.
Yeah, and it's about finding your voice.
Exactly.
So to everyone out there who is on this journey, embrace the challenge, enjoy the process, and never give up on your dreams.
Never give up.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed talking about this with you today.
Me too.
And to all of our listeners out there, we hope that you found this conversation helpful, and we'll see you next time for another adventure in language learning.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.